Welcome to Honeybee, real stories of love, lies, and betrayal, where every truth stings. Let's begin. Charles and Ivanka had been married for several years. To anyone looking in, they seemed like your typical couple, two people carving out a life together. But behind the scenes, things weren't as harmonious as they appeared. Their relationship had become strained. Arguments had turned into a regular occurrence, sometimes sparked by trivial matters, sometimes by more serious issues, but they all pointed to one undeniable fact. The distance between them was growing. Despite it all, Charles loved Ivanka deeply. He wasn't a flawless man, but he worked hard to build a future for them. They'd been saving diligently for a home, a dream Charles clung to like a lifeline. He envisioned a place they could finally call their own. But Ivanka didn't quite share that vision. One evening began like any other. Charles walked through the door after a long, draining day at work, hoping for a peaceful night. But tension was already thick in the air. Ivanka had asked for something, and Charles gently reminded her that it wasn't in their budget right now. She didn't buy it, and as usual, a small disagreement snowballed into something deeper, something far more painful. Her tone turned cutting, and somehow it always made Charles feel like he was a problem, as if no matter how hard he tried, it was never enough. "How many times do I have to repeat myself?" she snapped, rolling her eyes in frustration. Charles kept his voice level, trying to remain calm. "Ivanka, I'm doing my best. I really am. But it feels like nothing I do is ever good enough for you." Ivanka let out a dry, sarcastic laugh. "This is your best? Charles, this is an effort. This is you doing the bare minimum and expecting me to applaud you for it." Her words hit harder than she knew. Charles felt something inside him crack. Bare minimum? He wanted to remind her of all the late nights, the sacrifices, the dreams put on hold. But what was the point? She wouldn't hear it. What hurt most was how dismissive she had become. It felt like she just didn't care. His frustration reached its peak. Grabbing his keys, he made for the door. He needed air, needed to escape the suffocating feeling of never being enough. "I can't do this right now," he muttered as he stepped outside, leaving Ivanka standing there, unfazed. He didn't know it yet, but this night was about to change everything. Charles hadn't gotten far when he realized he'd forgotten his wallet, left sitting on the kitchen counter in his rush to leave. Irritated, but knowing he couldn't go anywhere without it, he turned back. He eased the door open, hoping to avoid another argument. But as soon as he stepped inside, he heard her voice. Ivanka was on the phone. At first, he wasn't listening, just focused on retrieving his wallet and getting out again unnoticed. But then her words froze him in place. "I settled for less." A chill ran through him. His heart pounded as his fingers hovered above the wallet. "I should have been with Dean, but I needed stability." The air in the room felt heavier. Then she added, "Charles is a decent guy, but not the man I truly wanted." In that instant, everything clicked. Her lack of warmth, the endless fighting, the way she always seemed disconnected. It wasn't just about finances. She had never loved him the way he loved her. Charles quietly picked up his wallet and card and slipped out without a sound. The cool night air greeted him, but it did little to ease the pain. His feet moved instinctively down the familiar streets until he found himself at a bar, not one he usually visited. But that didn't matter. He just needed a place to sit, think, and let the reality of what he'd heard sink in. He ordered a beer, took a sip, and let the bitterness coat his tongue, though it was nothing compared to the bitterness swelling inside. Ivanka had never really wanted him. He'd poured his heart into building a life with her, believing their struggles were temporary, that love was worth the effort. But now, it all felt meaningless. She had settled, and by doing so, she'd unknowingly trapped him in a relationship built on convenience, not love. The idea of confronting her crossed his mind. But what would be the point? Tell her he'd overheard it all? She might apologize. She might even cry. But it wouldn't change the truth. Her heart had never belonged to him. As he stared into the amber liquid in his glass, a quiet but final decision took shape in his mind. He wouldn't just leave for the night. He would leave for good. Disappear. Erase himself from her life, and finally give her what she clearly wanted, the freedom to be with someone else. There was nothing left to fight for, nothing worth staying for. He ordered another drink, letting the decision settle deep into his soul. Tonight would be his last as Ivanka's husband. By morning, he'd be gone. Later that night, as Ivanka slept, Charles sat in front of his laptop in the dim light. If she wanted to be with another man, he wouldn't stand in her way. But he wasn't walking away empty-handed. He logged into their shared savings account, something he had always managed. They'd been saving for a home. Charles took what was rightfully his 80% of the funds, his contribution. But rather than withdraw the money directly, he invested it, buying items online that could be resold later, electronics, collectibles, valuable merchandise. He left no trace, wiping emails, covering his tracks. Next, he packed carefully and quietly, just the essentials, documents, a modest amount of clothes, and anything he might need to start over. He left behind anything sentimental. There was nothing in that house worth clinging to. Before leaving, he sat at the desk and stared at a blank sheet of paper. He didn't need to say much. The truth had already been spoken, just not to him directly. Picking up a pen, he wrote in steady handwriting. I heard everything. I won't stand in the way of your happiness. Go find what you've always wanted. No anger, no drama. Just goodbye. By sunrise, Charles was gone. Ivanka woke expecting just another morning, until her eyes landed on the note waiting on the table. As she read the words, her stomach dropped. He knew. Panic surged. She grabbed her phone and dialed his number. Disconnected. Tried again. Nothing. Frantically, she opened her email, typed a message, only to get an immediate undelivered reply. Her breathing grew ragged as she checked his social media. Gone, as if he never existed. In a desperate move, she called his workplace. Hours passed before someone picked up. Trying to sound calm, she asked about Charles. The receptionist responded casually. Oh, he resigned this morning. Sent an email before we opened. Effective immediately. Her grip tightened on the phone. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. He'd planned this. Carefully, deliberately. He had wiped himself from her world and vanished, leaving behind only a note and the consequences of her words. She had always believed Charles would never leave. But now, in an empty house, holding the last message he ever wrote to her, she realized too late. She had pushed him away for good. With Charles gone, there was no more need to hide. Ivanka turned to Declan, the man she had believed was her real choice all along. What had once been a secret affair, filled with hushed conversations and fleeting moments, was now in the open. No husband to stand in the way. No guilt clouding her conscience. At first, it felt right. Declan said everything she wanted to hear, made her feel wanted, told her she had made the right decision. There was excitement, passion, and a sense of freedom she never had with Charles. This, she thought, was a life she was meant to have. Months passed. Ivanka filed for divorce, convinced Charles was gone for good. Since he never surfaced, the court issued a default judgment in her favor. She was legally single, free to move on without looking back. For a while, everything felt perfect. But slowly, cracks began to form. Declan, though charming, was emotionally distant. He gave her attention, but only on the surface. When talks of the future came up, he dodged them, changed the subject, avoided commitment. The truth unraveled. He wasn't exclusive. He still entertained other women. What Ivanka believed was deep love turned out to be little more than convenience for him. She had left someone who gave her everything for someone who gave nothing in return. Suddenly, the comparisons began. The very thing she once faulted Charles for took on new meaning. He had been steady, loyal, present. Even during their worst moments, he stayed and fought for them. Declan, in contrast, offered nothing but short-lived thrills. Then, it hit her, she hadn't settled for less. She had thrown away something real for an illusion. What she shared with Charles wasn't perfect, but it was sincere. What she had with Declan was everything she thought she wanted, but it was never built to last. Years went by. Ivanka remained single. The man she thought was a soulmate, Declan, never became the partner she imagined. He avoided talks of marriage, always brushing it off. At first, she told herself he just needed time. But as time passed, the truth became undeniable. He had never been serious. And Weiss, he reminded her often, I never asked you to leave your husband. Those words haunted her, cut deep, because they were true. He never asked for her sacrifice. That had been her own decision, one she could never undo. And now, her thoughts would wander. Where was Charles? Had he moved on, found someone who saw his worth, built the life they once dreamed of, only with someone else? The answers never came, but the regret never left. And that's the story. So, what can we take from this? Sometimes, we don't realize the value of what we have until it's gone. It's easy to dismiss the efforts of someone who truly cares, only to regret it when they are no longer around. Many people chase what they think they want, believing there's something better out there. But often, they come to see they already had everything they needed. Words carry weight. What we say about our partners, especially when we think they aren't listening, can strengthen or destroy a relationship. Love isn't just about butterflies. It's about trust, respect, and companionship. Without those, even the strongest passion fades. If you don't value someone's presence, you may end up dealing with their absence. Charles didn't walk away in anger. He walked away because he understood staying where he wasn't truly wanted would only cause more harm. Some people fight for love no matter what. Others know when it's time to walk away. What do you think? Was Charles right to leave? Or should he have stayed and fought? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, take care and stay wise.